Unspoken Issues.
Okay, well, Marvel Comics presents, and this is issues 117 through 122. Now, we're not talking about the whole issues here. We are going to be discussing Claws and Webs. That's right. This is Wolverine versus Venom, and Marvel Comics presents hit the shelves, first issue, October of 1992. Dean, I believe that this was a suggestion by you, correct?
Yeah.
What'd you think here, man? What led you to this one?
Well, I think that this is a lot of fun, and y'all are big Venom dorks.
I'll take it.
And everybody's a big Wolverine dork.
Everybody.
And this is like the first time that they met. And I think later on, Wolverine's in a Venom miniseries called Tooth and Claw or something.
Makes sense.
But this is the first time they met. It's a lot of fun. And honestly, you're going to talk about this story, and you can't talk about Marvel Comics Presents at this time without talking about Sam Keith. So this is a good chance that we're going to talk about Sam Keith, who dominated Marvel Comics Presents as far as I'm concerned during this time. Fantastic covers. This is a great art by him. And so I knew y'all two would enjoy it. You love Venom. You love Wolverine. We're going to get weird with Sam Keith. What's not to like? What's not to like?
Oh, yes, for sure. I'm a big Sam Keith fan. Darry, Marvel Comics Presents, you got any history with the title?
This was actually one of the first comics I ever read. So the very last issue, it's a 6-part series, and they had all the covers. So the part 6, the final part, issue 122, I bought this off the rack at the corner store, and I was just Wolverine and Venom, right? If you got to pick a book and you want them both, there they are. I always remember
the Knights of Pendragon.
Knights of Pendragon.
Knights of Pendragon. That confused me because I would read the inside covers, because I went back and I got the other 5 issues, and I would read the inside covers thinking that they were all top tier books. So I was expecting the Knights of Pendragon and Constrictor and all these other characters to start showing up in big ways. And it wasn't until a couple of years where I went to started going to a real comic book store where I was like, oh, no, those were also rans. The thing that clued me in, Knights of Pendragon never had its own trading card. So.
Oh,
I guess it didn't. And even some Marvel UK got some with, was it the 93 set? So they had some cards. So Knights of Pendragon should have gotten some. Just Death's Head 2 dominated that, right?
Oh.
Death's Head is all about that.
But it's funny with Marvel Comics Presents because it turns out it sounds like a big book, right? Marvel Comics Presents. This is a big deal. And I'm not saying it wasn't ever a big deal. There wasn't great stuff that happens in it. I've got the promo poster from when it first started in here. Great Walt Simonson cover. It was for the cover, but they also used it for the promo poster. But this winds up mostly being a book for like, hey, let's see if anybody still likes this character. And also, hey, this guy's new. Let's see if he can do anything.
right. Give him a chance.
So isn't that funny, Darry? Because you're right. I stole these comics, and I was like, where's Constrictor? When's Constrictor going to show back up? Because I love that Constrictor story. And but he didn't. I didn't know that he had not done anything in like a year. I just didn't know.
Marvel Comics Presents is a weird book because there's some real gems. I've had to hunt down, and they're 8-page stories. It's not like you get
8 to 10 pages usually. Yeah.
But like Dwayne McDuffie had a long story, and Marvel Comics Presents. Sam Keith is doing stuff. Like
Colossus is God's country.
Yeah.
Wolverine saved the tiger that started it all off. Yeah. Obviously, I'm a mark, but the Ghost Rider Cable story is like, I never thought I'd get to see these two guys pal around.
Right.
And I think Sam Keith did the covers at least on that too.
I have a very large portion of this series in my collection, and again, most of them were bought off the racks. It was just a lot of times with these covers.
Glad you were buying them since I was stealing them. So.
Even out.
I liked them. I was just, you get so many characters in there, and it wasn't expensive. It always just seemed to be around.
Came out twice a month.
Okay, maybe that's what it was.
So it's $1.50. It's $3 essentially for like 80 pages, which is a deal. No ads. You know. You mentioned that Knights of Pendragon didn't get a trading card. For you, Darry, for me, Marvel Comics Presents was kind of a trading card in and of itself. For a long time, you knew there'd be a Wolverine, you knew there'd be a Ghost Rider. They'd usually team up with somebody, and then the other one, like you said, here's Knights of Pendragon, here's Constrictor, here's Young Gods, here's a Man-Thing story. Did it work kind of like that for you, too, where you're like, well, who's this guy?
I saw a lot of characters in Marvel Comics Presents that I had never heard of before, and still sometimes I'll see a name and I'll be like, oh, that guy was in one story of Marvel Comics Presents and never showed up again. So it was a great introductory book. It really was. It was time and money well spent. And like you said, it had the marquee characters too. It's not like it only gave you garbage. I bought this because I didn't know why Wolverine and Venom were fighting, but I absolutely needed that in my life. So I think it was a great title, and it continues a long Marvel tradition of we've got some house stories. Let's throw them in a book that don't have their own title and see where they go. Was anything in here the equivalent of Amazing Fantasy 15? Well, no, but we're talking about this Sam Keith story. What, 30 years later, 30 plus years on, the Dwayne McDuffie, late great Dwayne McDuffie's got some stuff in here. So it's continuing that tradition. Honestly, I wish they would do more stuff like this. This is very similar to the manga model. It's like, don't make me pay $5.99 for an issue number 1 that I may hate, or that's part 1 of a 6-part story. Give me something like this that has 3 or 4 stories in it, and maybe 1 or 2 you're not going to like, but maybe 1 or 2 you are going to like, and you're going to get the next one, and they're going to rotate out, and I can learn the names of creators and characters without that huge drop. And this thing does the Comics 101 thing, and they always gave you a great cover. Always. Yes. Like, I don't know who the editor was. I don't know how long they were on it, but always gave you a great wraparound cover. There were a couple of issues that when I was a kid, we just read so many times it would fall off. And it's like, oh, hey, it's a gatefold.
Now I got to pin up.
You're going on the wall. You're going on the wall. And it wasn't until someone would be hanging out and be like, this has staples in it. I'm like, that's a cover, but doesn't it look cool? And it did.
You mentioned that it's a great introductory title. And I think it's important to note, not just for readers, but for talent. This is a place, can you come in and do a 10-page story? Can you write a 10-page story? Can you ink one? Can you pencil one? And also Sam Keith, who I think is fantastic. But at this point, could you give Sam Keith the Wolverine book? Could you start a guy with this kind of style out like that? I think, and I don't remember his quite first work. He could have gotten a debut and had a different style, but if you're going to try something, this is a place to try it. Hey, Sam Keith, because this is decidedly antithetical to a lot of things that were hot at the time, but Sam Keith wound up arguably as hot as anybody who was an Image, except for like Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, and Rob Liefeld. He probably was just, when he took the Max over there, he's probably just as hot, and this is a place where you can let him try something different. Let's work on this. Let's see what's going on. And I think that that's another important part of the legacy of Marvel Comics Presents.
I bought 1 issue of Marvel Comics Presents off the shelf, and I can remember it was at a 7-Eleven right by my grandma's, and that was issue number 19, which turns out is the very first appearance of Damage Control.
I had to say that Damage Control.
I lucked out with that one, but I could barely remember any of the story. Rob Liefeld did the cover of it has Cyclops on the front, and it was in the same camp kind of you guys were, where it was, I understood it was kind of like an anthology. Let's throw some stories. Let's throw all these stories together, see what you like. And that's kind of why I didn't continue to buy the title, because I wasn't into that. Plus, I didn't know what I was going to get issue to issue.
That is one of the things that editors say about anthologies. That's why they can't sell them.
It's tough to continue to buy a product unless they're putting stuff in there that, and I didn't understand what the title was at the time. I think issue 19 came out in 89, if I remember right.
And this is also before they started booking it with Wolverine and Ghost Rider.
Right.
That's to address what you're saying, where at least you're going to get Wolverine and Ghost Rider every month.
Right. And it holds one of the more important stories for Wolverine, which is his origin story.
Weapon X.
Which I don't believe I've read, and there's some dude that's penciling I'm kind of lukewarm on.
Yeah, you might be lukewarm on his ass, right? Barry Windsor Smith. Barry Windsor Smith, he's hearing this. Barry Windsor Smith is like Santa Claus. He sees everything.
Oh, no.
He knows.
It's the last thing I need.
So you've never read Weapon X then?
No, I don't think I have. Okay. I don't think I have.
Another thing you should probably look at before you judge Barry Windsor Smith.
Okay.
You should take a look
enough.
At that sometime.
Fair enough. I mean, I remember he kicked some ass. Was it Conan and Rune? I was really impressed.
Like that. And you know what? They're not dissimilar.
Okay. Fair enough. So we get to Claws and Webs here, just like you said. Wolverine, hot character. Venom, very hot character. This is late 1992. Both of these characters are just shooting up as far as popularity goes. Howard Mackie writes this tale. Sam Keith on the art, Janice Chang on letters, and Michael Thomas on colors. I'll go ahead and start into a synopsis here if you guys are ready.
Sounds good.
Here we go. All right. In the heart-pounding tale of Claws and Webs, Wolverine finds himself ensnared in a nightmarish web. Left to the mercy of
You really went for it there.
Left to the mercy of a seemingly endless torment. His mutant healing factor valiantly keeps him alive as birds relentlessly peck at his restrained form. In a surge of determination, he breaks free from this haunting prison, only to realize it was all a twisted dream. Awakening to reality, he discovers the ever-insightful Professor X aiding him, recognizing the recurring nightmare as the sinister work of the villain with the same name, Nightmare. Seeking to confront Nightmare head-on, and Wolverine employs Professor X for a little bit of assistance, and they devise a plan to send Wolverine into the ethereal astral plane. As the astral journey...
Just astral plane, right? The ethereal plane's different.
Oh, okay. I called it the ethereal astral plane. Let's go ahead and strike that.
I couldn't remember.
That's...
If this is Dungeons and Dragons, they're definitely different. The Marvel Universe, who knows? Who knows? There's an alternate Human Torch from another dimension named Guard, who's like a hockey guy, so... Anything could happen.
Wait, what?
Isn't that like the GAARD? Isn't that just like alternate Johnny Storm?
From what?
Fantastic Four. From what? The piano, the Oscar-winning movie from the mid-90s. Johnny Storm.
What universe? This is a Fantastic Four story.
Is this a new thing? I don't think I've never heard of this.
No, this came out in the 70s when nobody could leave.
Oh, okay.
There's no offense to anyone, but not much happens between the end of the Lee Kirby run and the Byrne run that you really have to look at for. It's Johnny Storm. We're waiting, and you guys might be able to see this.
Okay.
So. He's like an evil hockey player. So
No, I missed that one. That's
alternate dimension.
He's from somewhere else. They did that a lot. Then, like Reed Richards with the Bruton. Don't seem to be a thing. They went back like, I guess the Fantastic. Put more Fantastic Four in here. What if they were the Great Eight?
Perfect. Well, when I said ethereal,
anyhow, astral plane.
I said ethereal. That's a lowercase e. All right.
Okay.
There you go. It's a descriptor.
All right.
As the astral journey unfolds, a vibrant jungle appears before Wolverine's eyes. Nightmare's eerie call lures Wolverine deeper into this otherworldly realm where an unexpected encounter with the lethal Venom awaits. Confrontation erupts as Venom, mistaking Wolverine for an adversary, launches a brutal assault before retreating. Driven by a primal instinct to protect a woman who resembles Wolverine's beloved Mariko, Venom battles ferocious tigers, drawing Wolverine into the melee. However, misunderstandings persist, leading to Venom webbing Wolverine to a tree and impaling him on a hefty branch. As the chaos unfolds, Nightmare materializes, foreboding Wolverine's demise, but hinting at Venom's potential involvement. With sheer determination, Wolverine wrenches free from his
healing factor.
Oh, yes. Demonstrating unwavering resilience. Meanwhile, Venom confronts Mariko, asking for more information on Nightmare, triggering a clash that propels Wolverine and Venom into a tumultuous underwater skirmish, culminating in a dramatic waterfall plunge. Emerging from unconsciousness, Wolverine witnesses the Venom symbiote abandoning Eddie Brock's unconscious form, only for an alligator to pose a newfound threat. Swiftly intervening, Wolverine spares Eddie from becoming the reptile's meal, his resolve deepening to unravel Nightmare's motives for involving Venom. As the symbiote returns and reunites with Eddie, tensions escalate. Yet Wolverine persuades Venom to forge an unlikely alliance against Nightmare's sinister machinations. Their resolve falters when Mariko's distress calls them forth, only to be assailed by a monstrous, bird-like entity, leading to a revelation both shocking and sorrowful, as the creature transforms before Wolverine's eyes into the now dead Mariko. The discord between them intensifies when Venom, deceived by an illusion, perceives the woman as Spider-Man, and by golly, he's got to kill Spider-Man, prompting a dire confrontation. Wolverine's sharp instincts detect Nightmare's deceit, pausing Venom's impending assault as the illusion fades, revealing Nightmare's twisted manipulation. Confronting Nightmare, the vile mastermind boasts of controlling the dimension, unveiling a terrifying plan to exploit Wolverine's mind as a gateway into Professor Xavier's, and then feeding on the fear of millions within to amplify his power. A fierce struggle ensues, with Wolverine and Venom battling against Nightmare's insidious psychic onslaught. In a decisive moment, Venom seizes Nightmare as Wolverine seeks counsel from Professor X, receiving approval to act. With a final surge of determination, Wolverine impales Nightmare with his claws, empowered by Professor X's psychic assistance. Their combined efforts culminate in a powerful psychic blast that banishes Nightmare from their realm. As the astral plane fades, Wolverine and Venom bid each other farewell, slipping back into the embrace of reality. So there you go. That right there is all 6 parts. 6 parts of Claws and Webs. Dean, I want to ask you here. Can you break down Nightmare for us? What's with Nightmare?
He's an old Doctor Strange villain. Very interesting villain to utilize to bring Wolverine and Venom together. But basically, he's just how he sounds. He controls nightmares. He's a master of dreams, and he comes and visits you and puts your nightmares there and also feeds off them. And for whatever reason, really wants to take over the waking world. But I'm like, bro, it seems like it's a lot better when you're asleep. First off, you can't make mistakey if you're not awakey. So good job. You stay asleep as much as you can. Second off, again, why? Over there, he's like Dream, like Morpheus, right? So almost anything he wants to happen, happens. What does he need here? Is it because there's like 93,000 Dunkin' Donuts in Connecticut? What is it he's missing out on? It just seems fine. Just run the Nightmare show, bro.
Search up the perfect bear claw.
Right. He's like, oh man, I just really want to get cut off by a BMW. What is it he's missing out on? But that's more or less it. He seems to continually want to take over the waking world.
Not only is he a Ditko creation, he might be the first one. Ditko does this thing a lot where it's you're going to fight the personification of a concept. Hence why this thing is like nightmare. Bad dreams exist. So you are going to... Doctor Strange came preloaded with all this real trippy stuff. So I think Dean's right.
Let's go ahead. I guess we'll talk about your thoughts on the story here, Dean. This is Wolverine teaming up with Venom, of course, fighting Venom. I want to preface this with the fact that you mentioned this was their first confrontation, and
I believe so. Unless I can find, it's possible that they met somewhere prior, but they certainly act like they don't really know each other, and I can't remember them meeting before.
This is definitely their first meeting because Venom's only a couple of years old at this point, and the idea of Logan being his own character of running off and doing everything again, that's relatively new, and not in the last year or two, but Logan getting his own miniseries was a big deal. And I guess, Dean, has Weapon X happened yet or no?
Yeah, Weapon X has happened
okay,
at this point.
All right.
And he's had an ongoing series since '87, but certainly there's not really a good spot for the two of them to meet otherwise. But I don't think they had met prior. Why? Do you have information otherwise, Jesse?
No, the question...
Yes. Do you have evidence that would prove me wrong?
So... Can I make a Robotech wiki joke right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Get on the Robotech
Always. You never, ever have to check with us. Always.
No. I was just sitting there thinking about the time that the Punisher first met Wolverine and those two mixing it up. Now you got Venom and Wolverine mixing it up. That's a big deal. These two anti-hero characters coming together and just, are they going to fight? Are they going to get along? So it's kind of exciting when you have that. To have that happen here in this story. To this type.
Same thing when Punisher met Ghost Rider and Wolverine met Ghost Rider. And even to a lesser extent when Darkhawk met Punisher and fought Venom. But like the Punisher meeting Wolverine felt incredibly new. Venom meeting Wolverine. Oh my God, this is all new. And it felt like you were the part of some incredible wave of important events. Now, the old timers, I remember trying to tell me none of this is important. I was like, you don't understand. They're fighting right now. And of course, now as an old timer, I'm like, it's not as important as I might have thought, but it was still very important for me to get caught up in that and see characters that I was really rooting for and against meet up. And like you said, are they going to fight? Who wins? How does this work? And this was definitely stuff lunchroom table you would talk about. You're like, Wolverine and Venom in Marvel Comics Presents. And you're like, oh my God, you want to see it. He got passed around.
Right. Well, what do you think of the story, Dean, overall?
Is there a story?
Well, there is.
I'm just teasing. This is obviously mostly an excuse to get Wolverine and Venom together.
Yep.
No, it's funny that Wolverine's like, yeah, Nightmare messing with me again. Have they ever met before? It's not a typical X-Men villain or Wolverine villain. I'm not saying they haven't. There's a lot of X-Men stuff. And I've been reading the old school X-Men in Epic Collection format from Giant Size X-Men #1 through, I don't know, I just finished Days of Future Past, but I've read the next one after that. So I don't know. Chris Claremont was really good at working in different guys for the Marvel Universe, so it's possible Nightmare had already messed with him or something. If you had asked me, Wolverine and Venom are going to team up, who do you think they'll fight? I don't know that Nightmare would have been one of my top 50 choices or thoughts, but it doesn't matter. It works. I think the other most important thing is it gets them to the astral plane where they can go off on each other without there being any real ramifications, because in the end they can be like, oh, it's all fake. So Wolverine can throw his claws right through Venom, and Venom can impale Wolverine on a tree. Wolverine can be crucified like he's in some kind of Greek tragedy at the start, and it's all fine. For me, this is really all about Sam Keith.
Exactly.
I'm not knocking Howard Mackie. This is not a bad story at all. It's a perfectly acceptable superhero comic book.
The astral plane gives Sam Keith the setting to really let loose. Very reminiscent for me. I say reminiscent. This is prior to the Max happening, but I'm reminded of, what was it, the Outback? So I feel it's by design. Sam Keith is like, hey, how about you let me go a little wild with these guys? Okay, we could do that. Let's do the astral plane. Well, how can we work the astral plane into this? I got an idea, Nightmare. I wonder if it worked backwards like that. Well, that'd be sweet, but
could have.
Yeah,
I'm almost 100% sure it did.
Yeah.
This is the Max. This is the Max. This is clearly what he wanted to draw. The Max even has awkward claws that are his middle finger. It's the same poses, and that's not a bad thing. I'm really happy that he drew claws and webs and was like, I'm going to do an indie book. There happens to be a company right now that supports that type of stuff. I'm going to make a ton of money. I'm happy he went and was able to do the Max. The Max has a really good self-contained story on top of everything, but all the architecture is here. You're right. Nightmare's realm, the astral plane, or whatever nonsense they're fighting on. He renames that the Outback. Mariko becomes Julie. All the little things that are biting at their haunches. That's all the Izzies and everything else. Nightmare is almost, he doesn't look exactly like Mr. Gone, but that same design work, that terrible dream line.
A lot of people bent over and hunched.
Jesse, you're really
and I'm bent over.
Exactly. Jesse, you're really into AI, and it made me think of that a lot of times, where it's like, these are images that your subconscious conjures. That's right. That's Keith's aesthetic. So
I was just going to say 3 words that I wrote down, 3 phrases for Sam Keith's art. I've already told you guys one of them was dumpy, because that was always what I got, this weird kind of...
You don't like it?
No. When I say dumpy, when you look at a character, they look dumpy. They aren't all muscle
like muscles and skin are hanging off, like gravity is affecting them too much.
Horrible posture was the other one, because anybody you look at, you saw it hunched over. I don't think anybody stands up straight in the whole book at all.
Well, it is the astral planes.
Okay, all right then. And then muscle bound as well, but go ahead.
Muscle bound as well, huge muscles, but I'm going to give Sam Keith one of the greatest compliments I've ever given any artist before. He is the only guy who ever really got what Steve Ditko was doing when he did astral plane stuff and Dormammu. I'm not saying nobody else has ever done it well, but everybody else pretty much just copies him. It's these sloping paths, and there's these star things that are hanging and big energy explosions all around, but they just copy what Ditko did, and some of them do it well, some of them even do it arguably better, and it looks better. But Sam Keith is more like, okay, so I can make a place that's weird and trippy and out there. It's like, yeah, this is what Ditko did. He's like, well, I'll springboard from that, but this is my version of that. And he's like the only guy in Marvel history to do that for the most part. Everybody else just kind of, and again, I understand why you copy the aesthetic, because it's fantastic. He nailed it. And I think that there's a reluctance to go beyond that. And I think part of it also is it's Marvel, so you want to keep some continuity. But Sam Keith, not afraid to break into his own psyche and subconscious and just let that inspire him instead of copy it. And I think that's one of the best compliments I could give him, is when it comes to trippy stuff, otherworldly stuff like this, you want Ditko or you want Keith, and then it's kind of the field. Maybe Jim Starlin.
I agree with you 100%. This is what I was trying to say about the dream logic stuff. It doesn't just feel like Doctor Strange is going to a different place and having a different experience. It feels like you are going to a different place and having a different experience. And Ditko was the master at many, many things, but to Dean's point, he absolutely codified that aesthetic. You read those early Doctor Strange comics, and there's nothing like them on the stands. But Keith seems to get why they were so impressive, not just copying the locales of where they go to, but making you feel really uncomfortable. And I could read this thing without even reading the dialogue.
I skimmed it right before we came on. I was like, well, I don't have to read these words again. I get it.
I actually would be really curious how they did this as a team, because I'm sure Howard Mackie is Howard Mackie. I'm sure he could have come up with a full script, but this does not feel like a full script. It just feels like Sam Keith drew what Sam Keith felt like he wanted to do. The whole distinction between Nightmare's Realm and Astral Plane, and that just feels like Mackie going in afterwards, Stan Lee style, and trying to come up with a plot to this thing, not realizing, no, this is an auteur. Just let him do whatever he wants to do. He's not even going to be working at Marvel in a couple of years.
Listen, they're going to fall down a waterfall, buddy.
Right, exactly. That's like, I already drew this great shot.
Venom saying last one down is a rotten egg, and Wolverine saying see you at the bottom, bub. That's what you want. You want it to end right there. This thing is magnificently paced.
Sam Keith, man, it's a broken record, but not only does he have he has the ability to make great storytelling decisions. His pages are packed. They are not self-indulgent. They are not just one splash page after another. Every panel is this beautiful work of art. The backgrounds aren't always there, but his characters never look the same way twice, and they are great. And they encounter these one-off creatures, the design work there, everything else. It's consistent with what come later, but it is trippy and it is great, and you don't expect Wolverine and Venom to be in this type of story, but you totally buy that this is the kind of realm that would happen when they have to deal with their self-conscious. It's a master of work. It really is.
I think, too, we have to give Sam Keith even more credit because he never really did anything too different. He was able to break in with this style in a post-Neil Adams era, where after Neil Adams, everything really became focused on kind of realism. Everything became focused and on making things seem photorealistic's probably a bit too much, but everything was going to be correct. Anatomy, faces, etc. And I love Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and even Carmine Infantino and Bruno Premiani. And one of the things and even guys like Lou Fine and Jack Cole back in the Golden Age days, it's sometimes better, since these are comic books, to just draw some crazy, okay? It doesn't matter that Sam Keith's like, oh my God, Wolverine could never hold his arm up if it was that shape. Well, good thing it's fake, right? Wolverine doesn't have to worry about it because it's that. And I think that in an era where that was one deal, and then the next thing that was coming around was Rob Liefeld and that hyper exaggerated look with physiques and pouches and stuff, for him to break out as a superstar here it's almost like Rage Against the Machine breaking out as a superstar. It's like, oh, we're big corporate guys and we sell a bunch of records while at the same time preaching communism to you.
Right.
It's weird. How could you break out? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
The other thing I really like about this, I'm flipping through it as we're talking. There's a couple of scenes early on where it's set in what is ostensibly the real world, where Wolverine and Professor X are hanging out, and they're doing a lot of exposition, whatever. But even that nicely contrasts with the dreamscape, the outback, the astral plane, whatever you want to call it, that dream world, because it's dark and the figures are small and it's oppressive. And it's almost like the real world is terrifying because it only has a single set of parameters. And it's the dream place where everyone is free and the proportions are grand and you can be as strong and determined and everything else as you need to be. But here it's a sickly looking Wolverine. He's very small in every panel. He's lying on this bed. He's talking about how absolutely miserable his nightmares are. And he doesn't find that to be that's strange because he knows he's got issues. Right. But he's like, there's something else going on. I know when things are bad. This is 10% too much. And
I'm relying on my alpha flight training here to let me know this is too much. I wonder if I'm being invaded by an extra-dimensional deity. Better get Professor X involved, who looks creepy as hell. You're right. The real-world scenes are scary. Yeah, I mean, it looks like something from that show Legion.
Yes, and I would say that that's a good precursor to that type of stuff, because even though this is after Sienkiewicz and Claremont have introduced Legion in the other book. That show is
sure. Like I think Legion about this time has just died.
I don't know. I tried reading New Mutants once, and my eyes, I fell asleep.
Well, you remember when X Factor, read the old X-Men, join the new X-Men, and we get the all-new, all-different X Factor? Around that time, Legion dies. Well, so that was definitely before this.
All I was going to say is this another thing he continues into the Max that I always really liked, because it's kind of saying the same thing of, I don't remember if the main character in that book was a victim of abuse, but it certainly had that feel to it where the real world was not doing her any favors. And that was one of the reasons that she was able to escape to the outback, to the dream world. And it's the same thing here. If you're going to throw a physical presence at Wolverine, well, you know he's going to beat him. That's not really impressive. But Wolverine has admitted the fact that he's never in a good mental place, and he hasn't been. This is still of the era where no one knows his background other than Weapon X, and Weapon X brings up more questions than it answers. So I thought this was a great use of that, because it's, well, we know Wolverine's got mental problems. We're going to throw a guy at him that takes him into this place where he's going to have to confront some version of them. And I thought that was really, really good, because, again, in the real world, it's all right, Wolverine can kill a bunch of people, but when you actually have to make him confront to his own mind, can he do it? And I love the fact that he can, because in continuity, there's a bunch of things you can point to. It's Logan has been able to survive over 100 years because he embraced meditation techniques and all the general Eastern philosophy that people like Frank Miller would introduce into the book. But also, one of the reasons he stayed at the X Mansion and never killed a bunch of people after that was because he was getting the help he needed, right? Like Professor X is not only is he the world's greatest or most powerful psychic, but he's a dedicated instructor, right? He's a teacher. He said, no, listen, I'm going to help you and I'm going to help these other kids. And if you guys want to go and make the world a better place, I think that'd be a great use of your talents, but I'm going to make sure you got a safe place here. So again, I think this story uses all of the elements, but also sets up the kind of aesthetic that Keith is going to take with him when he goes over to Image. It's this idea of the real world can be terrifying. Our dreams can be freeing, but they can also be dangerous, and there also are threats there. And this thing is perfect. And I would hand it to someone today with no apprehension.
Do you think Wolverine, during the time when he didn't know his past and stuff, he would just put on some headphones like I got now, and he'd just maybe light a doob, and he'd turn up Pearl Jam's 10 real loud and just listen to Alive and think about Sabretooth? When he thought Sabretooth was his dad, it's like, that guy you saw, what's your daddy?
I know what my next convention commission's going to be. Thank you very much, Steve.
Pearl Jam's 10 dropped August of 1991, so he could have very well done it, shortly before this issue.
We're there. We're right there. Listen, I know my 90s. I'm not got that timeline down.
Man, oh man.
This isn't a world without Cyberforce, so Jesse was listless. He had
where I was looking.
I was waiting.
Looking for a shore to park my boat.
I think, when does Cyberforce drop? September of 92? August of 92?
I think we were just talking about this too. I think it was September of 92.
So if you had both of these in your hands, would you get Cyberforce or would you get Wolverine versus Venom?
Oh boy. I think I'm going to land on Cyberforce probably, unfortunately. Did you see Impact on the cover? That's right. It's not on the cover of Marvel Comics Presents.
This is an Image Comics Presents. But I want to make it clear, I like Cyberforce. I give Jesse a hard time about it, but Cyberforce is fine. There's nothing to say.
There you go.
He's the one with the bad taste.
I also love Cyberforce. I don't have a bad thing to say about them. I always thought the designs were cool, and I'm a fan of Mark Silvestri to today. I don't have a bad thing to say.
Great Wolverine artist too, so bringing it all back home.
Right.
There you go.
And sometime in the future, we're going to do Killer Instinct. Because
that's right. We should do that.
Every so often, we have to do a Cyberforce thing because I give Jesse so much about it.
You got to keep me happy over here. Production value.
We like it. But back to Wolverine and Venom, neither of whom are members of Cyberforce.
No, they are not. Sam Keith's Venom is really good. If you look at the Venoms across the 90s and who handled them, like Eric Larson, Farland, and you look at Sam Keith's Venom is no slouch. Although he's slouching, but he's no slouch.
Right. Well, it's not his fault. He has no backbone, and I don't want to come across like one of those people who's like, because I'm saying this jovially, because some people are like, oh, Rob Liefeld, look at he doesn't even draw any feet. I like to point out that Sam Keith's characters have no backbone, no bones, no structure, but I love him. I feel like it's the charm, right?
Right.
Jesse, I'm so happy you brought that up because I wanted to say the same thing. Every character in this series is exaggerated, right? Yeah. Wolverine he's to your point, he's slunched over, but everything looks weird. But Venom, with the way Keith draws him, really does have that house style. And I think a lot of that is people must have connected with the way he was drawn here, because I feel like this becomes that Venom style. That early McFarlane Venom is great, but that is not the design, that is not the template that would be used certainly after Larson and going in Bagley and going in everything else. Like Venom becomes looser and larger and more weird, and that suit is doing things.
Remember later in the Madness when it's Critters 5 and there's all these little Venoms?
No shit.
Yeah, that's the Madness, right?
It's Venom the Madness. Absolutely, it's Venom the Madness. Absolutely.
Sorry, miniseries can run together. I really wish they would have just put out a Venom series, but Marvel!
But you hit the nail on the head, because Venom starts as your very traditional David Michelini supervillain, right? The dark shadow that Spider-Man's light casts. But by the time he's
Bizarro.
Exactly. But by the time he's his own character, he's his own property, he's a horror character. There's no getting around it. He is the Thing crossed with Michael Myers. He is that terrifying, awful thing. And he's got something living inside him that needs to get out. And he's always smiling with rows of teeth. And you see that here. And I don't know. I feel like
his face turn around this time. I think Lethal Protector is kind of simultaneous with this.
Yeah.
Because in there he's concerned about innocence, because your horror analogies are right on, but you got to throw some ash in there, because he's very concerned about saving people, and he likes to make really terrible puns that you just laugh at because, wow, it's bloody.
I could talk about Venom all day, and Who's
your favorite Venom artist?
Eric Larson, no questions asked.
Eric Larson, wow.
Absolutely no questions.
He hates Venom, so that's very interesting.
I know, and that's the only reason why every time I see him at a show, I don't go up to him, empty my wallet in front of him and just say, please, sir, can I have a Venom commission? Because I know he hates drawing the character. And it kills me every time I see him and his weird pen. Weird way he holds the pen. And Eric, I love you if you're listening to this. But yes, I know Eric Larson. The way Eric Larson drew Venom is the way I picture Venom. I love Todd McFarlane. I love Mark Bagley. I love everyone else who's worked on the character for the most part, but Eric Larson is my Venom. That's no questions asked.
Yeah. What about you, Jesse?
I'll land with Eric Larson too. I'm a huge fan of Larson just in general, but his Venom was pretty sick. Keith is up there though too, man. The problem is that what other times does he have the opportunity to draw Venom here? This is it, right?
Off the top of my head, he pretty much stayed in Marvel Comics Presents when he was at Marvel. And then he goes right to the Max. I don't recall him doing a Marvel book on the reg besides MCP, but I could be wrong.
I was looking it up. You're right. Essentially, his first Marvel work, according to Mike's Amazing World, is Incredible Hulk 368, but that's the only issue. And I don't know specifically. He's credited as the artist. And then after that, his Marvel Comics works. Marvel Comics Presents 85 all the way up to 92, issue 100. Has some work in Clive Barker's Hellraiser. Interesting. 117 and then 122. And then after that.
He did a cover for Marvel Superheroes number 16 or something. I can't remember. Or Summer Special, whatever it is.
I got I've got the Wizard magazine where Keith is doing the art for the Hulk on the front. Yeah. Oh, his style just stood out from everybody else's. That's what immediately made me a fan, was the fact that these guys were making their mark, and Keith was just he was the one artist that I tried to, I don't want to say emulate. I'm not a good artist in any way, but I would sit at my grandma's, back to my grandma's, walking distance from a 7-Eleven, but I'd sit at my grandma's. I'd sit at my grandma's.
Slurpee and Comics, what the fuck else you gonna do, son?
Fuck, dude. They had Time Killers in the arcade sitting there. You guys, I don't know if you guys remember Time
Killers. Did you hit a pedal on that one?
No, this is a fighting game that was mocking. Well, I'll say mocking. It was aping Mortal Kombat. One guy had a chainsaw, and you could insta-death these guys within seconds.
That sounds familiar. I don't think I've played it, but I think
I'm pretty sure it's Time Killers. I'd have to look this up, but it's not. It definitely didn't get ported very well when it went to the consoles. However, it was just so funny because last month I made a trek out to where my grandma used to live, went into that 7-Eleven, stood back where the comics used to be on the wooden shelves, looked over there where the videos used to be that you could rent because every gas station was renting video cassette.
Man. Video game rentals. Everybody was getting their hand in that pot. And you go to different ones because you don't understand. They have Mega Man 2.
All right, dude. That one and this one doesn't. I'm gonna have to go over here to the BP. But anyway, I remember sitting there at my grandmother's, and she would have reams of paper that she stole from her work just to keep me appeased so I could draw, and I would draw the Max because in Sam Keith style with these massive angular muscles, and it was just his artistry was just something that stood out from everybody else, in my opinion, and the way he told a story. And what you see and unravel on the page was amazing. And this was fun. I've never seen or read this before, but there's nothing that happens in this story other than it's not like Wolverine and Venom really explore themselves.
No. This is an action movie.
This is them. And the way that
trippy action movie, but an action movie. It's like that movie Mandy from a few years ago.
Right. Nicolas Cage. The way that they end the threat, the way the Wolverine ends things, he has Nightmare by the head and he rams his claws through his neck. And
you see the electro effect on him right before?
Yeah, dude. Sick stuff. It was a good story. Action movie is a great way to describe it. And Sam Keith can hold his own.
Sam Keith did his own thing. Like I was saying, it's like you're at an award show for most popular music in like 1996. And it's going to be like Sophie B. Hawkins and Hootie and the Blowfish, Blues Traveler, and 9 Inch Nails. I mean, you're like somehow because of doing their own thing. That's what Sam Keith was. He just did his own thing to the point where you would have no. He became a superstar because of that ability to just keep seeing it his way. Right. And you're right about trying to draw like him. I try to draw like him too because I felt like I could. He makes it look easy. It's really hard.
I just want to talk about Nightmare because again, his design work is unmatched. But the way he draws Nightmare, the villain. It's almost as if he's part of the background. The realm they're fighting in, this dreamscape, the proto-outback, the whole thing. Nightmare isn't a person as much as he's this thing you see when you're asleep and you're having a bad time. And I love the way he does this. He'll have the character of Nightmare connect to the panel borders, bleed into the background. There's this panel I sent you guys before we started recording where he's sitting there in the Frank Frazetta death dealer style. Nightmare isn't a villain you can punch. Nightmare is a villain that you gotta hope that you can stand being in his presence long enough to overcome him. And I think that Keith really, really sells that here. And again, I'm just assuming that there wasn't a full script. If I'm leaving something out for Howard Mackie, I apologize. But
Howard Mackie talks about it. It's in the script. Nightmare says that he's been putting his essence into this realm. So that was his plan, was to get Wolverine here. And since he had been leaking his essence in here, this was the final bridge to get to Professor X.
Well, there you go. But whatever it is.
I'm sure you're right, though. I'm sure they worked this Marvel method. And he put that in probably because of what you're talking about. He's like, wow, look at him just kind of slink into the background.
Again, I'm just a fan. It's one of these things where I don't really know a lot about art. But I know reading this, and even as a little kid, the first time I read it, I was like, this is a terrifying force because you're not just fighting a bad guy. You can't just overpower him. It's like you have to confront him because he is everything that is here, but you're also confronting yourself, right? When Wolverine pulls himself together and comes off that stump, he's realizing he can do it. He's figuring out what the rules are. And I love it so much. I love setting these two hyper-physical, hyper-masculine threats up against someone where all their strength really doesn't help, right? Yeah. Logan has to figure out a way to outthink him. And part of that is figuring out, well, Venom's an idiot, which is canon, right? Venom is not the sharpest tool in the shed, but he figures out, he's like, oh, what do you want? You want to get home so you can murder Spider-Man? Fine, great, whatever. But if I can point you in the right direction.
They're not all the new Avengers together yet.
Right. This is the early 90s. This is the new Avengers hasn't happened. The rivalry.
We had Spider-Man versus Wolverine.
And that story is incredibly dark. So it's not like Logan and Pete have a group text. And Spider-Man was not having a good time at the time anyway. So
it was like East Berlin.
Right, exactly. So I just liked it. I thought all the parts were used very well. I thought Nightmare was used very well. Dean's analogy to Ditko is spot on because I'm a huge Ditko fan, and I always go back to the same thing. It's like you would not have him. Well, no one was going to impress Steve Ditko, but I don't think you would have impressed him by doing a really good Doctor Strange story. You would have impressed him by using the medium to its absolute extent, because I feel like that is really what was important to him. He was
at least not doing his Doctor Strange story.
Oh, right. I just mean if you left Steve Ditko alone in a room for an hour and told him he'd need to come up with a new character, he would, and the character would be fully three-dimensional. This was how the guy worked. So I'm just saying, I think that coming up with something new and dynamic and interesting to look at was always what he prioritized over everything else. And I think Keith does that. And I have never met either person, but I think it would have made Steve Ditko really happy to know that when this book was finished, Sam Keith was like, I'm going to go over to the company where I own the rights to the damn thing and continue telling the story in the most engaging way possible. And again, I know you guys were, but I was a fan. When the Max came out, I bought it. I loved it. He fought Pitt. He had statues. He had accessories. He had a deal.
Did you get the Max half?
The half issue?
That's a good question. I don't know if
I remember the Wizard half. That was a big deal. You're like, the Max half. I remember watching the mailbox again and again. It became like a certificate of authenticity. I was like, yes.
I think that was a little bit before my time.
You see this? This means
my first Wizard one half was Astro City. I think that was a little after the Max.
So. Yeah, a little bit.
I wanted to ask y'all, what is your favorite page?
Ooh, because there are a lot.
Really great. You were mentioning the covers became pinups. I remember the part where Wolverine's on the stump with his arms crossed. That became a pinup for me when this thing fell apart. I was like, well, that one's going on the wall.
I was just scrolling through the last part.
That's probably my favorite.
The last part of the story, and man, it's just not. There's a 2-page spread. It looks like where Wolverine is looking to the right, and then Venom's looking to the left. It looks like they're webbed up, or that one. Man, it would have to be something that involved Venom, because I think this Venom kicks ass. Although the depiction of Nightmare too, sometimes it's just so exaggerated, and it's not the same from panel to panel.
No, it's not. And Nightmare, like Darry was talking about, the way he blends into the background with that stealth, it's weird because it's like a threat that could come at you from anywhere. The guy with the knife at the Carnage concert in Madison Square Garden, where he wasn't supposed to have that knife in there. He could pull it out anytime and just get you. You know what? Fade into the background, put it back. So you're like, what happened? I don't know. I didn't see anything. He was ready to go. He knew what was going on. He could fight Nightmare.
I'll tell you what, the one that stuck out to me, okay, this is my favorite panel, and that is Wolverine throwing the claws right into Venom's abdomen. That, and I think it was payback.
Right. Now
and what's crazy is you see the claw, or you see him punch, and the claws are just stretching the suit. Right. They're not coming out. It doesn't look like they're coming out at all.
Comics code book, they can't come out.
Oh, okay then. All right,
there you go. You can do that. That's why Elektra, when Bullseye kills her, the silent pierces her body, but not her clothes.
Okay, all right then. Well, makes sense. But yes.
But it's a great visual here.
I'll go with that. That's where I'm landing on.
What's your favorite page, Darry?
My favorite one is the one I sent you guys earlier in the second to last issue, where Venom is choking Spider-Man, because it starts out at the top where Wolverine was once again tempted with Mariko, and he realizes at the last second this
I already killed her.
I already took her out of my life. And then Venom is just like,
what a weird feeling that would be, right? Oh, I can't kill this lady. She's already dead.
But that's the type of messed up stuff you get when you try to fight Wolverine on a psychological level, where it's like, I'm going to make you relive your worst day. And he's like, buddy, my worst day was way worse than you think, and I relive it every time I close my eyes. You're really going to have to wake up early to throw some nasty nonsense at me. But to your point, that's what I like about it, because he's like, I did this. I know I did this. I'll never forget I did this. And then Venom, who again is just who is an insane person, jumps in and tears Mariko out of her hands and is like, that's Spider-Man. And he starts strangling him. And he's actually shown to be drooling, which would be a big aesthetic choice that later artists would make. But here it's almost like he's unhinged. And he's like, I got him. He's here. He's not fighting back. This is exactly what I want. He's just drooling. He's just overpowering. And then at the bottom third of the page, again, these pages are so wonderfully dense. Nightmare is laughing like a carnival clown in the background. He's getting exactly what he wants. And again, you don't even need the dialogue. I got to this page and I was just looking at it. I was like, if I'm ever afforded the opportunity to purchase this, I would do so happily.
Venom was going to eat Nightmare's brains, or wanted to, at least at one point.
Well, at least that's on brand. He's got a talking action figure that said that.
Definitely on brand.
I remember seeing that in Toys R Us and just hitting it again and again and again. Must have annoyed the piss out of everyone in the world, but I didn't care. I couldn't believe that was there. I have the Punisher talking figure still. I don't know if it still works, but still in the package.
What does he say?
I can't remember now.
Is that the one with the backpack? Yeah, okay, I had those.
Like, die criminals, or you can look it up. I forget.
I'll look it up.
Criminal scum. I can't remember. It's been so long since I take my badge. I'm off the force. I should do that. There's a part of this comic book where there are alligators with their mouths propped open with logs, and I feel like that's worth the price of admission in and of itself. How often do you get to see that outside of a Hanna-Barbera cartoon? And we got it here. So I really do appreciate that aesthetic, and that is the last thing I need to say about this.
Okay. All right. Very good. Yes. Alligators. Alligators with their mouths propped
open with logs.
It's pretty cartoonish.
Because Venom has liquefied for some reason. Apparently he can handle anything except a waterfall.
That's wow. And it's interesting. This is the astral plane, and that we have Eddie Brock is just not Eddie Brock still. This is Venom, and it's these two coexist, and they are one person. But in the astral plane, also the Venom symbiote can leave if it wants, which is kind of crazy. But they're both experiencing the same thing, which is interesting for this mental state. But aside from that,
it's like Freddy stuff. It just works that way, because I know Wolverine got souped up so that he could do some punching.
Oh yeah,
because Professor X was like, "I'm going to give you substance, but I can't guide you once we're there."
I also read that as being Eddie's worst fear, because I think at this point in his career, he is terrified that this thing is going to leave him. And I don't know the last time you read, his origin story, but he's pretty much on death's door before he gets the symbiote. He's at his lowest point. He's thinking of, at least later writers would interpret that as him considering taking his own life. So I really do think that Eddie Brock as Venom is in the dreamscape thinking, well, what's the worst thing that could happen to me is this suit leaving me, and therefore taking everything that is special away and leaving me just this husk of a person of where I was on that church floor. So that's how I read it. Later writers would also establish that the suit, not only does it have sentience, but it's got its own personality. So, but I don't know how much of that was already in there. But that's just how I read it. Of what is Eddie most afraid of? Eddie's most afraid that this suit's going to wake up and go, "Man, you're a loser," and go
and leave.
Just go away. Just
that's what Carnage's suit does all the time. Remember? I should leave. This guy's better.
I mean, it's
answer without you.
It's not an unfounded thing. Here we're still kind of in year zero when it comes to the character, but his complex mythology, eventually it would be like, no, these Sims only stay with you if they think that that's their best bet. And the Venom symbiote and Eddie, they seem to have gotten a rapport going, but at the same time, it's like, well, he spent just as much time on what's his name, Flash Thompson. So
right, maybe his real biggest fear is, I'm a hot character now. How long will I be a hot character? I don't want to be the next Fish Police. I don't want to be somebody they thought was going to be big and then wasn't. Maybe that's what he was concerned about.
It's funny too, because we've got the benefit of hindsight, but what is this story really? It's a guy who was introduced to fight the Hulk, fighting a guy who was introduced to fight Spider-Man, and now at this point in time, they are arguably as popular, as successful as everything else as their antagonist. Obviously, Wolverine and went on to have his own career outside of the Hulk and even the X-Men. But that's what they start out as, right? These two guys fighting each other. And I think there's something great about that, because you're reading this and you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense. These two characters have no connection whatsoever, but it's great. Yeah, and I wish it were collected, and I wish I could hand it to someone right now.
That's a great point. All right. Well, let's go ahead and close up shop here. That was Marvel Comics Presents issues 117 all the way to issue 122, Claws and Webs. Wolverine meets Venom. What a fun time here. Let's talk about the Unspoken Decade, Dean Compton. What is going on over there?
The UnspokenDecade.com still has a bunch of great articles, and we just cleared like 10,500 followers on Facebook, so thanks everybody.
Wow.
And this is the 10th year anniversary. Started this thing in 2014, so see if I can find something cool to do later. this year. But that's where we're at right now. It's a good time. Check us out there, and check us out on the website, theunspokenDecade.com.
Okay. As for what I did recently, you can hear me discuss comic books with Dean Compton and Darry Waite, specifically Jack Kirby's Fourth World number 20. And that was a great conversation. I learned a lot about the Forever People in Supertown, John Byrne, Jack Kirby. We had some good discussions there.
I badmouth Stan Lee, so tune in.
You can hear myself and Evan Bevins on the Source Material Comics podcast discuss Booster Gold 52 pickup. That's right. We have some great time travel adventures with Booster Gold, and that may be a situation where we continue to check out the rest of that series as time moves on the Source Material Comics podcast. And I think that's it. As of right now, I think I'm in the process of noting some future episodes with Mark Radulich in regards to Batman Gordon of Gotham, GCPD, and Gordon's Law. I think I've read Gordon's Law today. And I think I
start calling Batman Gordon of Gotham BGOG.
Might as well. VTaz, BGOG, I like it. And then me and Mark Radulich and Ronnie Adams, three guys that have held up Source Material for quite a while back in the past, are getting the band back together, and we're going to be discussing Sons of Anarchy, the series that came out on FX a while back. So I'm already into season 3, and I'm supposed to space these out monthly. It's going to be interesting because I want to have to go back to my notes a lot. But season 1 is going to be our first discussion there. I think that's it. We are going to get out of here. So for Dean Compton, for Darry Waite, I'm Jesse Starcher. Thanks for joining us on Unspoken Issues. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. Unspoken Issues is part of the UnspokenDecade.com, the home for 90s comics, blogs, and podcasts. Unspoken Issues also has a Facebook group you can join if you are interested. Just search the Unspoken Issues podcast and request to join. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com and the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.